With over $12 million in purse earnings as a trainer and driver, Dr. Ian Moore is sending his 2-year-olds to the baby races in just a few short weeks. We've caught up with him in Classy Lane. I'm Jaimi MacDonald with the Harness Racing Update, checking in to see how his 2-year-olds shaped up down in Florida. Thanks for having us here, Ian, at Classy Lane Training Center to take a look at your 2-year-olds today.
Glad to have you here. I wish you had brought some sun and some warmth with you, but anyway, I guess we'll take what we got.
Speaking of the sun and the warmth, you did just recently come from Florida where you trained down your 2-year-olds. How was the trek up here with the babies and all the barn equipment?
It was 3 weeks ago this past Wednesday that we landed here, and quite truthfully, the weather's been very miserable since then. I don't quite remember it being that way in Ontario this time of year, but it's been cold and raining, and I've only got to train the babies 3 times, counting this week, and that's okay, I guess. We got lots of time, but it's amazing when you think that it's really only about 3 weeks till the first baby race, so I'm not going to be ready for that, that's for sure. So. The horses, I'm sure, when we left there, it was in the 80s and the 90s, and it's been quite a change here. There's been all kinds of mud in the walker and the paddocks and everything, but they're adaptable, and I guess we are too, so we'll have to deal with it.
Moving on to one of your 3-year-olds, Century Farroh is coming back, 2 starts so far, and has been doing well and eligible for the North America Cup. Can you tell us about him?
He's turned into a very nice colt. He really matured and filled out body-wise over the winter. His owner, Dave Ratchford from Sydney, allowed me to take him to Florida, which I'm glad he did. He was kind of a slim-build colt last year for a Mach 3. They're usually very robust and muscular type, horses and conformation-wise, and but he filled out an awful lot and really matured. And I've got a hobble that's 3 inches longer on him this year. I've let his head out about 5 holes and so on. And so far we're very pleased with what he's done. He's only in the non-winners of 3 in so much lifetime. And of course the NA Cup is going to be a huge step up. So, but we're very hopeful, and that's what we're shooting for. I didn't put him in the race this week because if all goes well, there'll be a gold next week, Ontario sired, and then the Somebeach, and then hopefully the NA Cup if he's good enough.
So speaking back to your 2-year-olds, how many 2-year-olds do you have in total in 2019?
I have 9 here now. We started with 10. One of them had what's called ventral septal defect, which is a hole in her heart, so she's not going to be a good athlete as a result of that, but we brought 9 with us, and I have 5 fillies and 4 colts, I guess, and so far so good. We're very pleased with what we've got this year.
You spoke about the OSS program. It's approaching for both 2 and 3-year-olds. Where do you find your group sitting right now, more gold or grassroots?
A mixture of both at this point, I'd say. I had 4 of them in the bike on Wednesday for the first time, and one of them was a maritime bred in that bunch, though, but the other 3 were all Ontario, and they all went very good miles for this time of year, so I'm very pleased with that. So, I never really get too excited till I see how they qualify. A lot of them step up at that time, a lot of them go the other way at that time. So right now we're just going along and taking our time, and we probably won't be out for baby races till mid-June probably at this point. Unless the weather changes here all of a sudden. So.
And speaking of the baby races, you had mentioned they're quickly approaching as well. You're going to catch the tail end of them, but what is that feeling watching your babies go behind the gate for the first time, or sitting behind them for the first time in a race?
Yeah, well, for me that's a very gratifying and satisfying experience most of the time. I really enjoy training babies, and in recent years that's been my focus. When we go to Florida, it's been primarily babies that we train down there, and usually I qualify them myself at least the first time out, so that they don't go, people don't go too much with them and that sort of thing. Plus I want to make sure I have everything rigged out properly on them, hobble and equipment wise, and it's really, you know, the qualifiers are one thing, but then we go to race them, they go out and win their first start. There's no better feeling in the world for me in horse racing than that. Even if it's a mile and 2.5, I don't care. But you know, when you take them from scratch and make them a racehorse, I really enjoy that aspect of horse racing. Lots of times more than anything else. So.
You do have two he's watching 2-year-olds. How do you find him as a sire so far?
Well, it looks to me like he's watching is going to make a sire. I have a colt and a filly. The colt is small, like he's watching was, where the filly is a really good size. And both of them just pace all the time. They both have fantastic attitudes. They're both straight ahead. And you know, it looks at this point like he's going to be okay up here.
Let's get into your 2-year-olds. The first one we're going to talk about is Manlicious, Atlantic Classic for $13,500.
He's probably the best colt I have right now, and you know, he's maritime bred. I had his sire, Malicious, and he was one of the best 2-year-olds I ever had in 2009. He was a 2-year-old. He made about $380,000 that year, I think, and raced. He was in the top 3 in North America that year throughout the season. So I wanted to have one of them, and his first crop was the year previous. He only had about 15 because he had colic surgery during the breeding season, and I didn't quite find what I wanted, but when I saw this guy in the fall on the PEI sale, I said I gotta have him. So we bought him, and he's been a really nice colt. You know, I paid him up and do a couple things up here, but in all likelihood he'll be heading down to PEI. One of my partners, Leslie McPherson, is from PEI, and the other partner is from Fredericton, David Cellophant. So he's been in 2.5 in a bike the first time the other day with half and about a minute there, so looking pretty good.
Next up, Wild Card, a colt by Bettor's Delight, OSS eligible.
He was a Hanover Shoe Farm colt. He's a 3/4 brother to Betting Line that Casey had, Coleman. And he's not a big horse, but a lot of the Bettor's Delights aren't. He's very muscular and rounded out a lot during the winter months. And for a Bettor's Delight, he has a terrific attitude. He's kind of a real feisty little guy, actually, in a lot of ways, and but which is good. And he's doing well for us also. He's a late foal. I think he's like a June 8th foal, so I won't be pushing him too much for a while. You know, I'll just take my time, and we may or may not be there for the first OSS at this point, but looking pretty good so far.
Next up, a Sportswriter colt, Southpaw Hanover, Harrisburg for $18,000.
Yeah, Alan and Sally MacDonald, the people that own State Treasure, they bought that colt down there. Started out really good, just pace all the time, 3-legged. He's you know, they change throughout the winter and a lot of things they do, and he's a very nice colt. He's very quiet and unassuming. He's in a little bit slower set than the other ones are at the moment. Had some trouble with him getting on one line, but now it appears that we've got that straightened away, and you know, I think he'll be okay too down the road.
Next up, we have a Big Jim filly, Kit.
We have Kit, and we also have Cat, who we're going to talk about in a minute. And Kit Cat would be all right now, but she's out of an Albert mare. Kit, we bought her in London. Jim and Wilma McKenzie bought her, I guess they own her, and she's a very nice filly. You could pretty well go wherever you wanted to go with her all winter, like it was just hanging on to her basically. And she's still the same. She trained very well here on Wednesday, first time in the bike. We've had a little difficulty with her eating, and we've been trying some Gastrogard, Meprazole, and a few things like that. And she seems to be straightened away now. So, you know, she's one of the ones that I'm optimistic for going forward here in the next few weeks.
He's watching filly. The next half is Cat.
Yeah, and she's a big filly for he's watching, because a lot of them are a bit small since he was himself. She's a half sister to Deb, who won last night. I see a filly that we had from Mackenzie's last fall, who did very well in the OSS program here, and she's sort of coming to the forefront now. Like during the training in the spring in Florida, Kit was always sort of the best, and now Cat's sort of right with her right now, so she can go with her anytime at this point. And I think she's going to make a nice filly.
Next up, Alexis Skye, filly by Somebeachsomewhere.
Alexis Skye is owned by Jeffrey Snyder in New York, and she's a really nice filly. She's transformed. We got her a little bit late, but she's fitted right in and caught right up to everybody. She's out of a mare called Pirouette Hanover, who made 600,000 for Eddie Hart as a 2-year-old, I believe, when she was a young filly. She's the only Somebeachsomewhere that we have this year, and probably one of the better ones that we've had at this point in time anyway. And so I'm hopeful for her as well.
Mystic Shadow up next, 37,000 at Harrisburg.
She's a shadow play filly that we have, and she needed to do some catch up in her growing. She had her front end was a little bit lower than her back end, but she's catching up now. I had some problems with her earlier, trying to get her settled down and gated. She was very a wiry type filly, like all excitable, especially when other horses were around her on the track. But she's settled down now, and I've made several shoeing changes over the last little while, and she's doing well. Her and Alexis Skye, the one we just talked about, both trained in 211 here in the jog cart on Wednesday. So, you know, she's coming along pretty good now as well.
Shadow Silhouette, a homebred by Shadow Play.
Yeah, she's a homebred. She's been very late and slow to mature. She had some development issues last fall, and I've just been taking my time with her and haven't been doing too much. She's been about 17 now, and is finally starting to look like she should look for a baby at this point in time. She's going to be a good-looking filly when it's all said and done. She probably won't be in the baby races in June, but I'm hopeful that she will be maybe in the early part of it.
You have your pilot's license. What got you into flying?
I've always wanted to get a pilot's license, I guess. I've enjoyed flying, and over the years I've flown a lot to various racetracks, especially like when we had State Treasure, for example, with Dr. Jack McCall, who's a commissioned veterinarian on Mohawk. And about 30 years ago, a guy used to fly me around PEI, and I re-met him, if you like, down in Florida this year. Again, he's 79, he's still flying, so I've enjoyed it very much. I bought my own plane now, and up yesterday, there's nothing better.
And does your wife Nancy trust you enough to take her flying?
Well, you'll have to ask her that. I think she does at this point. Initially, it seemed like she just was coming for an odd ride just to kind of please me. But now I think she does sort of enjoy it. Her and I both flew up here 3 weeks ago, Wednesday past. Took us 8 hours, I guess, with 2 stops from Florida. And it was very enjoyable. I usually don't take her out if it's real windy or anything like that. I wait till it's a nice, calm, sunny day, and it makes it a lot better for us. So we're hoping to fly to PEI a few times this summer anyway, as we have a new home down there. And so a couple days of not racing, we'll be able to do that.
So you're very active both here and Florida, play hockey and baseball. Which do you prefer?
I like them both. I like playing hockey, I guess, because I burn more calories and it helps keep the weight off. But I enjoy playing softball as well. And, you know, I'm getting a little bit old though, so I'm getting a few breakdowns recently, and hopefully they're just temporary and I can keep going. I'll keep going with both of them as long as I can, that's for sure.
And have you ever missed one of your horses racing due to softball?
Maybe. I might have watched one on my phone on the bench a few times, but I wouldn't do that unless I made sure everything was taken care of. But yeah, I guess probably I have.
Who is your favorite sire?
Well, you know how I'm going to answer that. It has to be shadow play. I can't. I've had a lot of shadow plays over the years since he started being commercial sire, and you know, we've had a lot of good ones, a lot of poor ones, and a lot of in-betweens, but almost everyone we've ever had, they've all had good attitudes, and they've all been, you know, good-looking horses and want to be out there in the racetrack. So, you know, I can't say, you know, there's other breeds that we've had that there's a variation there, and he's remained fairly constant that way for us anyway, so I pretty well have to pick him.
Sounds like you're pretty excited about your 2-year-old, so best of luck in the upcoming qualifiers and baby races and in our stakes season this summer.
Well, thank you very much.
Harness Racing Update is the sport's most comprehensive and trusted news source and the fastest growing publication in the game. HRU has you covered with award-winning features and commentary from some of the sport's best writers. Stellar photography, race news, results, entries, handicapping, and video replays. The industry's most comprehensive sales results and Harness Racing's best reader feedback section. And it's all delivered free of charge to your email box multiple times each week. See why HRU is the most trusted news source of the sport's most important people from all facets of the industry. Subscribe today for free. To subscribe, just go to harnessracingupdate.com and then click subscribe for free.